Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I have a guest with me, AJ, who's going to be talking about Super Atomic. I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions about this new game, which is going to be a bit weird because these questions I know a lot of the answers to, but rather than me asking the questions and answering a lot of those questions, I'm just going to get the guy who made the game to answer the questions. Seems like a sensible thing to do.
Does.
AJ, would you like to introduce everybody to yourself?
Hello, my name is AJ Pickett. Been a YouTuber for a long time. I've been a full-time YouTuber since about 2018. I started writing for publishing in the gaming industry around the year 2000. I was first published in the Rifter issue 23 of the Blade Mage article. That was in 2003. So I've been doing this for about 25 years, but this is the first time I've actually written an entire RPG myself. Yeah, most people know me for the Forgotten Realms lore videos that I do, and I'm considered one of the top experts on Forgotten Realms. That's not an official Forgotten Realms writer or anything, so I am just a fan. But for the longest time in role playing, my focus has been broad, a lot of different games, and that's reflected in my abiding passion for the project, which I've just completed.
Hmm. And for those of you who don't know, when AJ says Forgotten Realms, he also means a lot of monster lore.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's particularly monster lore, monster ecologies, very, very thoroughly researched and comprehensive with an easy listening approach to the topic.
Mm. So I guess the first question is Super Atomic RPG. What the heck is it? I mean, like, why did you make a superhero tabletop role-playing game?
Yeah. Okay. So my main game that I've been playing most of my role playing career, amongst my original sort of gaming group, and one that I've always had an abiding passion for, is Heroes Unlimited and the titles from the Palladium books range of different products. That was one of the first megaversal rule sets, you say. So a universal rule set, one rule set, like GURPS and other games that came after. GURPS was the first, Palladium was the second, that made a universal rule set, one rule set for all sorts of different genres and settings of role-playing games, so that you could combine and cross over characters between different genres and settings. The Supers game and the Supers genre is different from fantasy and other types of RPGs because it's an all-inclusive medium. When you think about all the different things that can appear in a comic book, it really is no holds barred, anything goes. I mean, it's all about outrageous fantasy. There's science fiction, there's magic, there's psionics, there's high technology, there's aliens, and all sorts of stuff. So it really is an RPG genre that is a challenge because it's everything in the kitchen sink, and you have to come up with a game that actually incorporates and is able to incorporate almost anything.
I mean, in my opinion, is based on what I've seen of it at every step of the step of the process. Is I think you've done a lot of that, done a lot of that
Yeah,
with this
I
game.
cleaved very firmly to a few design principles, which were occasionally extremely demanding on me, and challenged everything that I really thought about RPGs and got me to burrow down to the core of exactly what I was making and who I was making it for. And
Hmm.
I think I've gotten pretty damn close.
So, I mean, I guess I remember having this conversation with you, and I remember when you were talking about Super Atomic, your intention was to make an analog game. You could say it's an analog tabletop role-playing game, but also to make a game for the modern player, somebody who is using a lot of video chat or
Mm.
live streaming. That was a big conversation that you had with me, and really to make it possible to play the game anywhere. It didn't matter where you were, you could play this game. And literally, and I think you've mentioned this before, like if you're in a prison, you could play this game.
Yeah, it's actually designed with people incarcerated in mind and the restrictions that they face day to day, because
Mhm.
they're a very dedicated bunch of people who are stuck playing role playing games. It's one of the few outlets they have, and they work around the restrictions they have in very unique ways. But they are extremely dedicated, hardcore role players. And I mean, I don't know why they're there, it's not my place to judge or anything. I've just they deserve to have role playing games made for them too, and they really don't have any sort of support or representation in the hobby from official sources. So stepped in and stepped up. Same thing with my intention to translate Superatomic into as many different languages and get it into as many markets as possible, including countries which don't really have an existing established role-playing market, but those markets are now developing thanks to countries such as India and China now developing a burgeoning group of people, a strata of people in their society who are prime and looking for role playing games. And unless you really pay attention, um, uh, you miss the opportunity to get in there and actually serve them. And through that, establishing a market, allow other indie RPG designers and of course bigger companies to have existing fans who are looking for other games. So yeah, that's kind of my mission is I jokingly say world domination, but I mean it's a supers game. It's on brand to have a super ambition, and so it's custom designed to also be. While there is a lot of American centric themes and stuff, because of course the comic industry is primarily American centric. You'll notice if you pay close attention that it's not based in America, and it can easily be adapted to other cultures and other countries. The language that I use is very crafted for that, and it may seem simplistic, very cut down, and leave a lot of room for interpretation. But that's kind of intentional as well, because the vibe of the game is to go with that old school agency that is let the players and the host of the game do what they want to do. Just give them the tools. Don't dictate them how they play the game. Give guidance, but don't structure it into the actual rule set itself. Just give them a very clear and inspirational set of a lot of different information that they can pick and choose from. And of course, it's tons and tons of random roll tables and the beauty of how they all fit together.
Mm.
Yep.
So I know the game is already available in English, obviously, but also in Russian on
Yeah.
release.
Yeah.
And the story behind that is entertaining, but more entertaining as I remember the conversation we had, and you said, Fred, India and China are next.
Mm.
If I can, India and China.
Yeah. The
I
Chinese Mandarin translation is underway right now. Should be ready around December 6th or so. Yeah.
That's great.
Mm.
I'm looking forward to the possibility of it winding up in some of in the UK, not the UK, the European countries, because I'm sure because Europe is going to play this sort of thing. But I also think there's a huge possibility that South America will be interested as well.
Yep.
So I guess we kind of already answered the question: is where did you get your ideas for the superhero games, Super
Yeah,
Atomic?
I'd like to acknowledge, like I do in the introduction page to the book, I do acknowledge my inspiration is very firmly and solidly, and you will see it absolutely that it is firmly inspired by Eric Wojcik and Kevin Siembeda, Jeff D, Steve Kenson, and other luminaries who I am standing on the shoulders of, and I make no bones about that. That it is derived from a lot of systems which will be very familiar to somebody who has played. Particularly Heroes Unlimited, you'll see the same sort of foundational structure because it works. So I'm not changing it because, it really does work. What I have done though is I have radically changed the way that the rules are handled and the way that the gameplay works. So it has the same vibe of Heroes Unlimited. It's same sort of potential for zany and awesome characters, and the replayability is massive. And no two games or two characters will ever be the same. But the real beauty of those games is the emergent synergies between the random roll tables, which is the genius of Eric Wujcik. And he created the BioE system for the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if you love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, yeah, and want to check out that game, not only is it a fantastic setting, and of course the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are awesome, but the rule system that he created for that was completely innovative and really, yeah, it was foundational. And a lot of other role playing games have been inspired indirectly or directly from that.
Mm,
And he deserves to be in the RPG Hall of Fame alongside Arneson and Gygax for sure.
mm. So let's get down to the nuts and bolts, which is actually not the nuts and bolts, but it's usually the question that everybody has, and that is, what are the rules to superatomic?
Yeah.
Because the superatomic rules, if I'm pretty sure, all fit on one page.
Yes, you can actually play the game with nothing other than a character sheet and one table printed on the back of the character sheet. You don't actually need to reference the book other than character creation. And if the host is planning the game, it's got guidelines and tables that they can roll on too. So hosts of the game are as equally supported in a way, much more so than other RPGs at the moment that I can name. So they get equal support, and the system that they basically operate on the same principle, same system. It's a bunch of inspirational roll tables. It's a little bit nebulous about the structure, but I do give clear, cliche, very easily absorbed and to the point from just sheer experience. Because it tends to be if somebody's been done something for a long time, they can explain it to anybody. And and I think the very to the point and short paragraphs that I've got on adventure structures like hero, a villain of the day or villain of the week, and other sort of what we call cliches, but they're cliches because they work. They're the reason why these things are staples of storytelling. And there are certain story types and archetypes and adventure archetypes that are cliches of role playing games. And if you've got no familiarity with how to run a game, that gives clear guidelines. Right. Oh, and dice table.
The, the,
Yeah.
the rules. What are
Right.
the
The
rules?
rules. Yeah. Thank you for the reminder. Okay. So I can show you. So here is Super Atomic, and here is the dice roll table.
Okay.
Now, if you look very closely, notice on the margin of the page there that there are a bunch of random dice numbers,
Yep.
the polyhedral dice set. So it uses the standard polyhedral dice set that is synonymous with role playing games. So you don't lose the baby with the bathwater. And I don't create any complicated. I actually strip it down to its basic core. What is a dice? It's for generating a random number result. Everything else in most other role playing games complicates that. If you're completely new to how to run a game using random roll dice, your natural instinct is roll high means good. And so that is exactly what this table is. Every single dice roll number that you have tells you what exactly it means. So if you roll a 20-sided die and you roll a 4, that's a bad number. You know it's going to be bad. It's a slip up. It's not necessarily catastrophic failure, but I say you almost had it, but something minor threw you off. I'm giving you a lead in the story, a guidance as to how that changes the narrative. Dice rolls in the game are called for by the host of the game. They're not requested by players. Players just tell the host what they want to do, and it's up to the host whether they just narrate that and allow it or disallow it, or whether they decide to randomly roll to flip it either way or send it in a random direction for their entertainment more as much as the player. So they want to find out what happens. It's the random element of it. They don't want to be totally in charge. And the players don't want them to be completely in charge either. They want that random anything can happen. The way that the reason why you use different denominations of dice, different sides of the dice, is the probabilities of those. So a 4-sided dice has only got 4 possible results. So you're either going to have a really good result, a really bad result, or and it corresponds on the table with a 2 is barely missed and a 3 is a close shave. So it's a near miss or a near failure, or it's a catastrophic failure, or it's a dizzying critical success. So the probability curve and the way that the story will go in using the D4 is much wilder than so it will radically change the way the story goes, because you want to use that die when it's critical, like the hero's exhausted, and I call it a Hail Mary roll, where you just throw for the bleachers and hope for the best. It could be catastrophically bad. It might just fail ignobly, or win just barely, or it may be a critical success. There's a very little padding of chance of forgiveness in between. Most of the time, you'll just be rolling a 20-sided die because it's got a fairly flat and predictable sort of curve. Yeah, and that's the principle. You choose when you use the dice and what dice to use according to the narrative of the game. So I can't predict everything that's going to happen in your game, and it's kind of ridiculous to believe that a rule set can do so. That's a conceit of wargaming, and it's a legacy of wargaming that I very brutally cut away to make a rules light and extremely fast system that anybody can pick up and play. You don't need to learn any mechanics. It's literally on the page for you.
And essentially it means that whatever dice you're rolling, whether it's a 4-sided dice, a 6-sided dice, the 8-sided, the 10-sided, the 12-sided, or the 20-sided dice, it's a 50-50 chance, but the smaller the dice, as you said, greater risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bigger the dice,
The probabilities do the work for you. And
yeah.
you don't need to complicate that. You can, of course, because it's so simple, it allows you to port in any other mechanic from games that use these sort of dice, and just overlay it like a template, like a tack on. That's the
Mm,
beauty of having something which is extremely simple. You can add things to it without disrupting anything because there's nothing to disrupt.
mm,
You're not going to unbalance the game because there is no game balance mechanically in the game. It's all narrative. It's all up to you. It's all a matter of conversation, agreement, shared storytelling and understanding that evolves organically. So there are no character levels. There's no stats or hit points or armor class or any of those other jargonistic things that are intimidating to people who have never played a game before. And if you have an experience of a wide range of different role playing systems, as you and I do, it's a breath of fresh air to just step back and say, okay, we're just going to talk. We're just going to tell a story and roll dice when we need to. And it works. It's not unsatisfying. It's zany. It can go in all sorts of different directions. It's extremely funny most of the time. The characters can be ridiculously slapstick. And yeah, but it's got the capacity, I suppose, to be a serious game if you really wanted it to.
yeah. When using these dice and applying it, I always remember you saying to me, if somebody is contesting what you're trying to do and there's a chance that it might fail, then pick up a dice and get them to roll it and then
Yeah.
decide how difficult it will be. The more difficult, smaller dice.
Mm-hmm.
Easier, bigger dice.
Yeah.
And rolling a 1 is always really bad.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to figure out. And, rolling the highest number on the dice is always good, which means 5-year-old, 4-year-old could figure out how this game system works. It's not going to prelude them playing this game at all.
Yeah. Because age is a barrier to entry too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's you don't need to interpret it. It's easy to understand in every language. As long as if they don't have access to dice in whatever country they're in, they're printed on the side of the page.
Yep.
So literally all you need to play is the book, a pencil, a piece of paper, and a group of friends.
Mm. So, well, that's really answered why you designed superatomic rules this way, because you've kind of answered that question in explaining how the rules work. So, let's go to the next part, which is always character creation. So, what is the character creation like for superatomic, the RPG?
I tested it out once we had the system in place. It was a person who had played other role playing games before. They mainly they're Scandinavian, so they had played Vaesen and Vampire the Masquerade and things are very popular over there. So she was familiar with role playing games, but she had never actually seen the book before. And I just handed it to her and I said, okay, sight unseen, open the book and make a character just based on what you read in there. And I'm going to time you. And it was 2 minutes and 31 or 32 seconds. And she was eager to play with the character that she created. So it is simple as if you happen to have the PDF and the character sheet, you can just literally copy paste the text onto your character sheet, much like other sort of games have very descriptive things like Fate, for instance, has got very descriptive elements of characters and very thematic elements characters. Same sort of principle. You have distinct parts of the character, the hero's journey, which is universal to most comic book characters. So they have an original state that they were in before something extraordinary transformed them in their life. Batman's parents were killed. Spider-Man got bitten by a radioactive spider, etc., etc. That narrative often is included in the game, the story of the character. So they always tell Batman's origin story. They always go over Spider-Man's origin story and stuff. So you roll for your background, which can be your, and it's not region specific. It's broad sort of things like lifestyle, things that influenced you and made the core of what your identity is. I don't dictate gender or anything like that. That's superfluous. That's applicable to you. You make your character however you want them to look, etc. What culture they come from. The specifics of it is up to you. I give you the themes. Then it's their superhero origin story. Where did they get their special abilities? This is optional. You can opt to not have any superpowers and just roll on another table, which is special training. Special training is a broad category of their professional focus and skills that they picked up. And I also have a subtable which gives you the origin of those special training. So there's you can roll on the broad category and then narrow it down with specifically where it came from. And it's incredibly inspirational. It will start to gel together. And as you create and build the character very quickly, your brain will be working overtime, kind of like interpreting tarot cards. How do these work together? And that's the beauty of it. It's just, even if you roll the same character, you might even be inspired to roll up the same thing, but make two different versions based on how you think they all work together. Then you've got you can optional mutations that you could get. Say if you fell into a vat of radioactive ooze or whatever, or we're in a laboratory and accidentally mistook a piece of dinosaur meat for sushi. And do you get mutations or not? Do you get major, massive superpowers or a bunch of lesser powers that work together? Yeah, some characters are very synonymous with particular powers, like the Hulk is all about strength. But he also has regeneration and can leap tall bounds and things like that. So there's subtleties and things, and the way the powers all gel and work together tends to have this strange sort of emergent theme that pops out of these seemingly random tables. And it's something that I'm just rearing for people to like literally find out for yourself. Roll on these tables, and you'll see what I mean. There's something weird that goes on. And it's the magic, you could say, of those tables. And who doesn't like random roll tables?
It's scary. It's scary how they work.
It is. It's
And
spooky.
while playing this game and testing it, you were right that one major power and two minor powers tends to be the sweet spot.
Mm.
Anything less and more tends to be that it's not quite enough, or it's not, it may be too much. If you
Yeah.
take on too many things, it's a little bit hard to manage.
Yeah. Again, it's not dictated. You can experiment as much as you want. You can overload them with powers. You can have it so that they start with no powers at all. And the story itself is how they gain their powers and become superheroes. The transformation from a normal, ordinary person into a super being, you can run something similar to Dungeon Crawl Classics or something like that, where you put them through a gauntlet where they're escaping from a lab and they get experimented on, and some of them don't make it. And the ones that get through the end are the ones who emerge with superpowers and form what their identity is going to be. Are they going to be heroes? Are they going to be villains? Are they going to be public? Are they going to be private? Are they going to be a super group? Are they going to be independent operators? Are they going to work for a government organization? Are they government organizations under? So there's all these things which are covered and thrown at you to just pick or choose.
Mm. And all these tables for character creation are either 100 tables, like legitimate 100 tables,
Yeah,
or semi-modified 1,000 tables,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So the lesser powers, for instance, there are hundreds of those lesser powers. So it's a massive table. Going back to Heroes Unlimited, when I was a fan of Heroes Unlimited, I was writing a lot of fan fiction and fan superpowers and things like that to add to the game. And we had a massive big list on the message bulletin boards of fan made superpowers that were adapted and made for that system. And I have I created a lot of those. I was very involved in organizing that. And so taking all the goodness from that, because the game also came up with other supplements and stuff and added more powers and things that were quite unique. But there's a lot of stuff on those tables that was never included in any official supplement. Um, and because I've stripped away all the base mechanics and things, they're all just thematic things. So it's taking all those goodness, things that work, and throwing them in there along with a whole heap of other powers and things which you just won't find in any other Supers role playing game. There is no Supers role playing game that comes anywhere close to the amount of variety and options for powers and power combinations that this game has. Because it's not loaded up with mechanics. This is 119 pages of solid resources.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just the character creation process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than the rule system.
Yeah.
Look, Super Atomic is one of those. This is an odd question. We kind of partly answered it, but I'm going to ask it specifically because I think it'll help people understand where we're going with this. What is the audience or customer for Super Atomic? Who is it designed for, do you think?
Well, they probably need to be alive. But I'm not ruling out AIs having fun with this or people who transfer their consciousness into machines in the not too distant future. You got to plan for these things. But as I say, everybody. And if there's a barrier to entry for anybody getting into this game, I will do my best to find it and work around it, whether that be language, location, a lack of other people playing. I will try and support anybody who is interested in the game and play it. So it's literally new gamers who have never played before, or experienced gamers who recognize that this game doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It preserves the fun, the essential element of what role playing games are, the atomic nature, the atomic bones of what role playing is. As Gary Gygax said famously in his quote, and I think I've got it right here actually. Just a second. I just want to do it verbatim to do the man justice.
so, so
I ain't going to paraphrase the man.
he wasn't ready for this one. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
surprise.
It is the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Super Atomic preserves the spirit of role playing, and the rules don't matter. So yeah.
So one of the things that I came across and was quite surprised by, and a couple of different tabletop role-playing games have done this to me, and you're aware of my group of people that I play with and
Oh
their
yeah.
and what they are like and how they operate.
What an
And
interesting bunch of gaming archetypes they are, Fred.
oh, they are. But I would also describe them as some of the if you took power gamers and you made them really old and they'd been playing for a long time, what would happen?
Mm-hmm.
Would fungus grow on them? Would they develop into more reasonable individuals? Not necessarily, but different. So yes, I would describe my group as power gamers who like crunch, who played a game that was not a crunchy game. And so they had all sorts of things that they had to try to navigate. So if you are dealing with a group of people they like lots of complexity and rules and so forth, and you're worried that they might not like this,
Mm-hmm.
when you tell power gamers, here's your narrative, try to figure out how to use it and exploit it in some way, and then get it past the host or game master without punching them in the face or being a dick, right? Um, they usually get to grips with it. Takes them a little while. My group struggled initially, and then it was like, oh yeah, I know what I can do with this. And then they would
Yeah.
just try all sorts of things,
I can
crazy
explain.
stuff.
I can explain. When you're a kid, have you ever had the conversation, who beats who? Mighty Mouse or Batman?
Hmm.
And that's it. So everything that's been added into role-playing games from 1970s and its tradition of wargaming and all of those rules, mechanics, and stuff that ported over and were turned and transformed through the genius of Wes Anderson and David Arneson and Gary Gygax all together into the beautiful thing that we have, which is tabletop role-playing game. they had an audience of wargamers. They had to introduce a new concept to those wargamers, which was the genius of it. It was 70% familiar and 30% new. The 70% familiar was tabletop wargaming. We're talking Prussian soldiers versus, etc. Sticks, moving things around, rulers, measurements, and things like that. Those things are integral, and I'm not slighting them at all for tactical wargaming and tactical tabletop play. And there are many games which serve those sensibilities and things perfectly well. Superatomic is not designed for that. And that legacy and baggage of the wargaming is not necessary in that conversation of who beat Superman and Mighty Man, or who beat Superman, Spider-Man, Mighty Mouse, the Hulk, etc. So it preserves the complexity. That's the power gaming, right? So you're given these set of abilities, and you're challenged with somebody who has another set of random super abilities, and it's like, how does that work? How do you get the upper hand? So it's a puzzle, it's a challenge, and it's not all about the rules and the mechanics and beating the system. It's about beating the narrative. It's about beating the situation, which is really the entire point that we were trying to capture in the first place. So it's pure role playing, and it is deeply satisfying for people who are power gamers. They just don't realize it yet because they've been so addicted and so focused on rules and numbers and mechanics that they lost sight of what the actual baby in the bathwater was.
Yeah. I honestly think that the biggest barrier to playing this game is the fact that you will have to read it. Like there's words,
There's
there's
words.
words, right?
Yeah.
There's words and there's some numbers associated with how dice rolls work, and there's
Yeah.
not a lot of that actually.
Yeah.
So,
Brevity in this game is, you'll notice that everything's is very succinct. Very, it's, if I can use as less words as possible to get the idea across, I do. And I was brutal in the editing process,
mhm.
to fit as much in as possible, but also to not make it intimidating to make a character. Like I say, 2 minutes and 31 seconds, you got a fully fleshed out character.
Yeah. I mean, I still think very much that a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old would probably actually find this game easier to play because they don't have the baggage and the self-imposed structures that make it hard for them to play games.
Mm-hmm.
Because adults really they feel like they need to have rules to legitimize the fact that they're playing fantasy stuff like superheroes or
Mm-hmm.
you know elves and dwarves or aliens and robots and
Yeah.
like that's supposed to be you would think in many respects for the children, not for the adults, and
Yeah.
and and that's where I think this game really sort of sets itself apart, is that as long as you can read, you're probably there. And even if you can't read, you'll probably be able to teach it to somebody who's quite young very easily
Yeah.
without too much trouble.
Yeah. Also, again, because it's so simple, and so modular, if you have any problem with anything like some of the powers like pestilence or disease or things like that, which can have nasty sort of, more adult themes, are very easily taken out and reworded and rewritten however you want. You can chop and change according to your audience. There is no there's representation of all sorts of different people in the artwork and things, but that's not reflected in any way in any text or anything there. It's not shoved in your face. It's free of depravity. It's free of politics. It's just a straight up, fun time.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be perfectly suitable for people of all ages. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So it's not just for those people who like narrative
Yeah.
tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah. It's 12 and up through it from complexity, but not theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where can you get a copy of Super Atomic the RPG?
Question. So at the moment, you can pick up the PDF from DriveThru RPG. It is pay what you want. We got with a suggestion of $10, but it's really just so people can take a look at it and play it and decide whether they want to buy a physical copy or not. At the moment, I'm in the process. We got the proof copy, the first physical proof copy, to ensure that all the layout and everything is perfect, to catch all of the typos and errors. The PDF, of course, that you get will be automatically updated with the finished proof before we okay. It's okayed for print from DriveThru RPG, but we just want to go through all the error checks and everything. And I'm laboriously, I've been at it 3 days so far, going through absolutely everything and making sure it's 100%. And yeah, so that's all on track and in progress, and will be quite rapid now. The first indication that it will be up and ready for play is Ben from D&D Shorts channel, or his new channel. Will be making a promo video, and it will coincide with the full release publicly of the physical book. It's a softcover book, as you can see. Same, and again, homage to Palladium Books, which actually pioneered softcover books, as most RPG books were hardcover back then. They stood the test of time. They last really well, and of course, they're much better for flipping through the pages for the random dice table. And of course, it reduces costs. It's also black and white interior art. There's only one piece of color art, which is there's a map, an example city that you can use called Astralis Prime. That's part of the host resources. You can choose to set it there, or you can just put it in New York and use Google Maps and all the tools that you have these days. So if you want to print out the PDF, it's cheap because it's just black and white. And it's everything's condensed onto the page quite nicely. So there's not a lot of waste space, or there's not big full page color spreads and everything, which get in the way of word count unnecessarily. Yeah. The print book is, I think it's set for $25 US, 25 or 29, something like that. That money is going directly to the people who made the book. It was self-funded. It wasn't kickstarted or anything like that. So we did all of the development literally on my own dime, and have paid them out of pocket, and they will be getting a percentage of the profits. Everybody involved in making the book, including Fred.
So, I guess the thing that I want to sort of explain to people is there was a lot of reasons why you decided to go this route.
Yeah.
Right. And one of it is tariffs. Another one is the risk of having a whole lot of books sitting in storage that aren't sold. The risk is there are too many risks,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are working this, they're going from Kickstarter and then they're putting it onto DriveThru RPG print on demand. You've eliminated the Kickstarter because I remember the hassle you had with Kickstarter numerous times was not a fun time. But
Yeah. Also, I'm unfortunately a very principled and ethical person. And a lot of the behavior which has developed over time on crowdfunding and the crowdfunding system and culture is actually unhealthy for game development, game design, and product design and stuff. It can really catch a lot of unprepared people out. They underrepresent what the actual true cost of producing an RPG is, so that they can reach their target quickly. They run the serious risk of having a Kickstarter go live and not having actual sufficient funding for the reality of printing and developing a book. They put all sorts of stretch goals and things on there which are unrealistic and largely unnecessary. DM screens and apps and all that sort of stuff. And I was going down that route too. I was looking at, this game is really, really perfectly suited for making an app. You could play this with an app. You could probably get an AI to create an app if you just fed all the information in there. It would probably spit out a reasonably working app. I don't know. Or pay somebody on Fiverr to make an app for you. Pump all the information in there, because it's literally just spreadsheets of random results and things. But yeah, it doesn't have the same artwork and vibe and things like that. It would be a handy tool, and I'll look at that in the future. But I have big plans for expansions for Super Atomic, and
we'll get there.
There.
So it's available now. You can get it off DriveThru RPGs. Pay what you want. You can get the digital version either in English or in Russian, and there will be other languages coming, as you've pointed out, which is great. So there's no excuse not to go and check it out. And the physical
you don't need
book,
to pirate it. You can just grab it for free. I invite you to.
Yeah. And then the physical book will be out when it's ready to be out. And to give people an idea, like the benefit of doing it the way you've done it is everybody's going to get the book much faster than they would ever get it if it was kickstarted. I've
Yeah.
had this discussion with other people who are publishers in the indie scene and not so indie scene, or and the reality is it took me about a month to go through and proofread um, Wally DM's latest puzzle book, which is about
Mhm.
100 pages. So I'd imagine it'll take you, because you go through and you go through with a fine-tooth comb looking for everything, and you know you can only do that for so long before your eyes start to sort of go and you have to take
Yeah, as I
breaks.
say, I've been at it for 3 days solid, and I'm about just over halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets faster from here on because the of course the powers sections and stuff are just very intense.
Mm,
Yeah, the other thing also I wanted to say about uh, crowdfunding and things like that is because it's pay what you want. I encourage you to get it through DriveThru RPG because that file will be automatically updated for you with the corrected version.
mm,
If you just share the file as it is as a PDF right now, it's going to still have the typos and errors in there. So just to represent, so I can fix it and make the file perfectly fine for you. After the print book is released, then send files to your friends through social media, Messenger,
mm,
Discord, things like that. I don't care. I want it at as many hands with as many people playing it as possible because if
mm.
they like it, they're going to want the book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, and it they're ready to really basically our drive-through RPG are ready to sort of let you do the print,
mm,
but this means that you might wait a month, and there might be a couple of weeks after that, so a month and a half, and the print on demand, even if it's 2 months, that's nothing compared to Kickstarters, which you can wait 9 months to a year.
yeah.
And there's all sorts of horrible surprises along the way. There's no horrible surprises with this.
No, no. I literally encourage you to go there, pay nothing, check the entire book out, run it, own it, love it, or not.
Yeah,
Yeah, give it a review, please.
yeah.
If you can't pay for it, talk about it. Yeah, but give me the space to fix all the errors and stuff where that's in process. And yeah, that's the only sort of thing I ask you to trust me on is that yeah, it's going to be everything's going to be ironed out before it goes to print.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I know that this is going to be a thing because I've talked to Wally a lot about this, and AJ has gone with Wally DM as the go-to guy
oh, a
because
very wise decision.
yes, it is. Wally knows what he's doing, and every time you do something that Wally said you shouldn't do, he's always right.
Yeah, you know those people who kind of annoy you because they're always just a little bit better, nicer,
Yeah,
more moral, more ethical,
yeah,
more generous.
hmm
That's Wally. He's
yeah,
annoyingly good.
yeah.
He's a disgustingly fantastic person.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah. And he always words it like, look, you could do it that way, but I would suggest doing it this way. And then he'll just leave it.
yeah,
And then you go down a route that isn't his and you regret it. And you're like,
yeah. He
well,
has a quiet wisdom and a quiet strength, which is astoundingly respectable.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we know how much this thing is going to cost, or not cost, depending on how you decide to access it.
yeah.
Who did the artwork for Superatomic, the book?
Right. It was a combination of me and Dave Newkirk. And Dave Newkirk is uh, he got on board with me quite early on. We had done some editing and stuff before, so we'd sort of tested out the waters and on how we work together. Um, and a lot of the artwork in there is a combination of my work and Dave's work. And yeah, so it is all hand drawn. So my typical technique is I will grab a piece of just typical A4 paper, printer
Mm,
paper, and I've got my pen set here of various um, illustration pens, and I literally use pencil, some fine tip markers, and some fine point markers, and literally drew it all by hand.
mhm,
Yeah, there's no AI artwork and stuff like that in the book. Whatever graphic techniques and things that we used are tried and true graphic techniques that we were trained in using as illustrators. We've both been working illustrators for many, many, many years. So yeah, whatever techniques we use, I can guarantee you they were authentic, and you're getting artwork that was made by people,
yeah,
not prompts.
yeah. I guess and as you already said, almost all of it is black and white.
Yeah,
So it's got that
it's got a
feel.
very 1990s authentic RPG feel.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how long do you think it took to develop Superatomic? Because it's, I mean, from whenever it started to whenever it finished, how long do you
Well,
think that
the
it's taken?
core motivation and really the spark that lit the fire under my butt was the Wizard of the Coast drama and the open game license that really disrupted the entire industry and snapped a lot of indie creators' heads around. It really woke us all up. We were living in a la la land of this quite an unusual circumstance in the entire history of role playing games, in that Wizards of the Coast really, and fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons really dominated the player base of the hobby. It seemed like you just couldn't play anything other than fifth edition. Everybody and their cat and dog was playing fifth edition. And indie games suffered as a result of that because they just couldn't find a market. They were very, very, very niche. And so everybody was writing for Wizards of the Coast and fifth edition. They just had to. It was the only way to make any sort of inroad or market money in the business. Case in point is my YouTube channel catering to Dungeons and Dragons lore. It's not necessarily edition specific, but I've also made a conscious decision to step away from the specific mechanics and things like that of the latest edition of the game because of Wizard of the Coast's corporate attitude and corporate greed and just really shoddy practices and quite nasty sort of principles that they have as a corporation that's only really interested in profit. And they will modify and change things as need be, as the market, as they see it, dictates, and they will throw out 50 years of literary history in order to do so. So I got very, very disenfranchised with Wizard of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons at the time, and it spurred a lot of individuals, which we now see emerging. So we saw a lot of quick RPGs emerge into the indie market suddenly, and then we're now seeing a trickle of games where the work was put in the old-fashioned way, like authentically. These are not just the next D&D killer. They are literally people's passion projects, which really express their core principles. And my core principle is very anti-corporate. It is very much very, very indie, very player, the real people who play the games centric. So this is a role-playing game designed with love and as a gift from me as a role player to you, my fellow role players. Saying this is what I love. This is what my experience of role-playing games, and particularly my involvement in the development of streaming games. So yeah, you could almost say it started when Google Hangouts and the first video game chats arrived. And I was one of the very first sort of early adopters of that, and encouraged people and did a lot of philosophizing and predicting about where it was headed. And I was very accurate, I must say, that it was headed this way, that streaming gaming would slowly start to eclipse tabletop role-playing games because of people, nobody could have predicted COVID, obviously. Or nobody could have predicted Stranger Things and the sudden mainstreaming of the hobby. But we had this huge influx of new players, and they flocked to the biggest thing in town that everybody was playing, which was fifth edition. But now they're starting to get more experienced, and they're starting to wonder: is the grass greener on the other side of the fence? What are these indie games? Why are these old school players playing all these weird games and wonderful games? And they're starting to look further afield. Fifth edition can't satisfy that itch. It could try and make a sci-fi game or a supers game or something like that, but it's not fit for purpose.
Mm.
So yeah, that was what I decided. Is like, look, people are going to be streaming, and they need a game that they can pick up and play real quickly. There doesn't need to be a session zero, or a whole session of character creation. Role playing with Dungeons and Dragons is a steep learning curve for somebody who's new to the hobby, and investing the entire session just in making a character, that's like sitting down and reading the rules of Monopoly and not actually playing that evening. It's dumb.
Mm.
So yeah,
So
that's
this
my
really
answer.
goes back to 2023, early
Yeah,
2023. Heck,
yeah.
even maybe, I don't know. I think a lot of us were still unsure about what was going on when Taryn Pound was talking about all of this initially back in December of 2022.
Yeah, fair
Um,
credit to Taron. He was definitely pivotal in that. I would like to say that most of my contribution to the protest and the boycott that happened was more behind the scenes via Discord and other sort of hidden channels where I was mobilizing a lot of fans to actually work in concert together and boycott and hurt the company in the only way that they understood, which is financially. And unfortunately, that meant a lot of people had to not go and watch the Dungeons and Dragons movie, end their subscriptions to D&D Beyond, which the company actually stepped in and tried to block very nefariously. I mean, I'm not going to go into all the things that they
Yeah,
did.
no.
They made a lot of made a lot of very bad decisions, yeah, they're not out of the woods yet by any means.
Hmm. So
But
yes, definitely
yeah,
go and watch all those superhero movies as well, and you should definitely go and see the Dungeons and Dragons movie now that it's
yes,
been
yeah,
released.
yeah.
It's unfortunate too that we won't see a second one. Honestly, I just don't think it's plausible. But
We'll
as a
see
result
a
of that,
Netflix series of Dungeons and Dragons before we see another movie.
yeah, yeah, and it won't be any good. Anyway, so
I
I
always
guess
hope.
um the next question is like who play tested this game? Because this sounds like it might be a bit difficult to play test.
Mm.
I'm saying this with a tongue in cheek, but who play tested this thing?
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say that I spent a year just in development and research. So I went and investigated as many different RPGs, supers RPGs, as I possibly could. I looked at a lot of different core dice mechanics. I looked at West End Games D6 system. From people would be very familiar with Star Wars Second Edition, Revised and Expanded Edition, as being a fantastic game system. Um, and lots of other things, and then in the end, I just went, you know what? I don't need any of this. And then once I had the tables and things set up, it was straight into playtesting and showing people how the tables and things worked. But just out of sheer enthusiasm, hey, look what I write this out. And Fred and his gaming group was happy enough to step in. But before that, it was actually the YouTubers roundtable. So a bunch of us YouTubers get together on Fred's channel and Wally's channel, and you can go back and look at those games. They were live streamed at the time, I think, were they, or just recorded?
They were live streamed and recorded, and I'm sitting on a whole bunch of recorded versions of those live streams that I am been waiting to release when a book was finished, and the book is
Yep.
finished.
Yeah. So if you are a person who doesn't trust a word I'm saying and wants to see me put up or shut up about the gameplay and how exactly a superatomic game plays, we got you covered. If you're like sitting down and watching a bunch of grown men act like complete idiots and occasional incoherent babblings, personally, I find live play watching like watching paint dry. So unfortunately, I can't be a Critical Role fan because who's got 4 hours? As entertaining as it is, yeah, I just got more stuff to do in the day. I
Mhm.
don't even play long video games.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, so it's all there. Fred, nice lead in there, nice plug. Yeah, so we have live streams. There's a few on my Discord server as well,
Mm.
and yeah,
So I mean, Wally DM definitely was one of the YouTubers that was part of that. Phil Kearney, Jake from Wisdom Check, Dennis, the OKS DM. I think he inspired you a lot with his Sagas game when you were developing the
yeah.
rule
He
system.
and Robbie,
Yeah.
who has the Enclave rules light RPG. Enclave is a very narrative. It's almost a purely narrative game.
Hmm.
It's quite a different sort of like it's very, very focused on that.
Yeah.
Whereas Superatomic incorporates those random roll tables and things. I'm not that familiar with Dennis's work yet because it was in development. I
Yeah.
think it's still in development. Yeah,
He's
but
finished. He's finished it.
oh, he has finished.
Finished
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
and ironically, at the time, Superatomic didn't have stuff that I could sort of go, well, here's my version. I could just sort of talk about the theory, and they were a little bit okay, let's see. But now yeah, here it is. It's done and complete, and you can see it.
Yeah. And
Mm.
then Mark from Dungeon Class was involved. Um,
Yep, demoniac.
yeah, Dominic,
Yep,
Bone Wizard. God, that guy's funny.
yep.
Um, Simon, Cajun, John, Kirsty,
Hmm.
JP or Jean Paul.
Yep.
Um, and
Jake as well. Yeah,
Jake from Wisdom Check, yes, yep.
yep.
And there's a bunch of people too that I know you ran private games that we weren't necessarily part of
Yep.
before a lot of that all even happened too,
Yeah,
very
that's
early.
my friends and fans on Discord.
Yeah.
yeah. So we play tested and stuff, and you'll see the name of several of them because they were fundamental in the original sort of play testing, the hashing out, and a lot of late night conversations or early morning conversations because we're all around the world, we really did hash out and talk about gaming theory and yeah, they helped me make those hard decisions. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. Big, huge thank you to John, who managed to find one of the biggest holes in that game through his power gaming craziness.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess the other question to be had, and also too, when it comes to play testing something like Superatomic, like unlike a lot of tabletop role-playing games that are analog, where it really you need to have like a decade to play test it, and usually they only get like 9 months or 3 months or 6 months or 2 years to play test,
Yeah.
because there's so few rules to actually test. You're really not, you don't really have to do quite as much of.
Yeah, instead of working out rules conflicts and things, which is the bane of course the tabletop role playing influence, and the way that the game is the rules really exist to limit you
Mm,
in constructive ways, in narratively constructive ways. So they limit you to give you thematic challenges and the constraints of the genre. That's of course, as I mentioned right at the start, there can't be any restraints on genre when it comes to a supers game because it literally needs to incorporate anything. So it was mainly playtesting the principles, and the way that the tables work together and making sure that the power balance, the wording of the powers and things got the meaning across sufficiently, or
mm,
or left enough room to for the players to interpret, and yeah, apply the game in a variety of different ways. So if you wanted to play a sort of slice of life game, you can do that. If you want to play a really cosmic Avengers save the world sort of way, you can play that sort of game.
mm,
Yeah, there's no, as I say, there's no power levels or
yeah,
leveling or anything like that. You level up, the game doesn't really level up. You
yeah,
know, you get more experience at playing. Your character doesn't have to level up. It's
yeah,
not locked into things. You can take away their powers and give them new ones in the game. Try that in a character on Dungeons and Dragons. Take away one of their character classes and give them a new one middle of the game. Can't do it.
yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we discovered was that character advancement was actually the player understanding how to play the character,
Mm.
because there weren't buttons or numbers there to help tell you what you could do.
Yeah.
You had to figure that out yourself. And I remember one of the biggest ones was Kirsty and her ability to manipulate blood. And she sat there for many sessions saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to be able to do with this. By the end of it, she was sucking the blood out of people. She was rearranging it. She was cleaning people's blood and getting rid of radiation. She was doing all sorts of things. She's repairing damage to people because, like, oh, your blood's spilling out. Well, I'll put it back in.
Yeah.
So it took a
Anybody
while.
who's watching Generation V and the storyline of the main character of Generation V knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah,
She didn't know what her powers were when she started either.
yeah.
So the character is working it out because you are the character.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I remember John, who decided for some strange reason, he loves Deadpool, and he rolled randomly. And he looked at the powers and he looked at the training and he said, I just rolled up Deadpool. And then he played Deadpool. And that is where John managed to find some of the biggest problems we had in terms of instantaneous regeneration was the biggest
yes,
problem, wasn't it? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and then and there was some arguments between me and John about instant regeneration, and if you get hit by a meteorite, would you not just instantly regenerate? I said, there's nothing left of you molecularly. It's
yeah,
all there's
yeah.
nothing to regenerate. It's gone.
Yeah,
Or
the warning I give people is that if you're used to the safety net of a totally balanced game where every character is supposed to be on an equal footing, that is not the case, and it's certainly not the case in any comic book I've ever seen. Look
mm,
at the Avengers, for instance. You got Hawkeye right
mm,
next to Thor.
hmm
That's not a fair fight.
no,
No. So it's perfectly representative of the genre. And
Mm,
I reject anybody that says a role-playing game has to be balanced.
mm,
That is a narrative conceit from tabletop role-playing games. Tabletop war gaming.
yeah,
It's not a part of storytelling.
yeah.
The challenge is you could have a character who's woefully underpowered compared to the villain. They have to figure out what they're going to do.
Mm,
They've got a problem, they need to solve it, and they can't rely entirely on what's on their character sheet. They have to think about it. They have to role play.
mm.
Yeah, so that's the challenge.
I remember losing a character who not by death. I wound up in a black hole or another dimension, if I remember right.
Yep.
There's some weird things that happen. It's
In
death may not be the end, but being stuck in a extra dimensional space that you can't get out of,
Yeah,
that there's no way to get out of is
I
possibly
mean,
a
if,
problem.
if a character rolls really badly and there's just no way to avoid the fact in the narrative of the story,
Hmm.
staring you all in the face and what organically happened, that character's been blown to smithereens or been poisoned and they drop dead, and you're like, oh, stink, I've got to make a new character. I really like that character. There is nothing stopping the host of the game from saying you had a latent mutant trait that a catastrophic physical trauma actually transforms you into your full state. Case in point, Simon Williams, Wonder Man, started off with a set of superpowers, appeared to die, was actually undergoing a coma ionic transformation into Wonder Man.
Hmm.
These are all things that you can just throw in there. I don't say don't. I don't say that's wrong. I say, yeah, if you want to, go for it.
Hmm.
Whatever serves the narrative. Super Atomic is serving you and that narrative. Yeah, it's not getting in the way.
No.
Mm.
And I don't think I had anybody whose character did die or get lost to another dimension or
Yep.
time and space issue or anything else like that who said, "Oh no, I wanted to keep playing that character." They were like, "Yeah, no, fine, I'll roll up another character."
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's
two and a
like that
half
too.
minutes
Because it's
later,
so fast. Yeah, you still get all the thrills and action. You still get the risk reward and the long term memories of like your character being threatened and real sort of perceived drama.
mm,
Risk and reward, as being real. Like I staunchly believe that you should not apply kids gloves to narratives and things like that in role playing games. But if you're playing, if you're running a game for a bunch of little kids and things,
yeah,
be a little bit,
yeah,
don't be a hard ass. In a very, very early game that was very similar to and had a lot of the same principles, it used a lot of these sort of random, a lot of the silly powers that are in here. There was one of them which is essentially the character just plays dead, plays possum essentially. And there was a person in a game that we played. It was a one shot, very thematic. Supervillain kid steals all the candy in Halloween, right? And it was all Halloween themed. And this player, their character, he's like, my character just plays dead on the side of the street. And like, during the game, occasionally I would check in and say, is your character? He's like, no, I'm still playing dead on the street. Lo and behold, we all forgot completely about the fact that his character was lying on the street. And then the villain's getting away at the end of the thing. There's going this crazy hijink chase where all of the players are loaded onto a Segway, chasing. It was the only vehicle they could find, chasing after this guy who was like a super toy mastermind who could animate and make toys and things. And then lo and behold, Mr. Possum pops up from being playing dead, gets the guy, saves the day, end of the adventure. It was the most, like never write off one of these minor silly powers, like the ability to always have $20, for instance, is one of the lesser powers you can have. Ridiculous. But there's other powers there too. Like you can always find a clue. You've got like this Columbo skill or a beautiful mind, or sort of sixth sense type person using their autism superpower, to find stuff. Like Sherlock Holmes, for instance, is representative as his super intelligence by he always finds a clue, or he can determine the most outlandish things from just like scant bits of evidence. That's represented by a power in the game that your character can have.
mm,
Narratively, if you're a host of the game, that's a brilliant power for them to have, because they say, hey, are there any clues leading to the next part of this adventure that our entire group can go into? Why, yes, as a matter of fact, because your character is custom built to drive the story along. It's
mm.
not actually a disadvantage, or it's not actually a problem. It's actually a huge benefit for a host of the game to have a character that just automatically figures out what's the next step.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
It's
breath of fresh air.
it's almost more of a superpower for the host or game master than it is for the players.
Yeah, Yeah, it just eases everything. Hmm.
So I guess the other question is like, how do you make an adventure for Super Atomic?
Right. Yeah. So you can homebrew your own. You can port over existing comic books and movies and archetypes and things like that. If you literally just want to emulate whatever happened in the Avengers storyline, go for it. You know, there's nothing stopping you. There's certainly stuff stopping you publishing an adventure like that, but there's nothing stopping you playing that adventure. So you can literally, have the Lego version of the movie, but as a Super Atomic game with this weird bunch of characters that aren't the Avengers. What would happen if these guys got faced with Thanos trying to wipe out reality? And the table, the host section at the back has got a bunch of random roll tables that are designed to inspire more than just nuts and bolts build a set adventure. They don't really work perfectly well together. They're not exactly the most intuitive or straightforward tables, which could be frustrating, but you get the gist of it when you roll on the table and say, I'm not bound to this result or not. I can literally roll on it multiple times, or I can roll on a result here, and then I can pick and choose things like, do I need an object, which is a focus of the story? We call it a MacGuffin, which would be the Infinity Stones, for instance. You would think like they don't really actually play much of a role individually in the Avengers storyline. They're just objects that combine to make this terrible thing. And you sort of see them in play a little bit with the fight as Thanos gains them, but the Avengers don't actually use them for anything, which is kind of bizarre when you think about it. And like a Batman movie, for instance, the Joker isn't alone. He's got a bunch of goons and they've got a specific theme, a fun sort of theme, and they've got a motivation of their own, maybe, goals and aspirations. You've also got a table which gives you broad sort of supervillainy archetype type motivations for the villain if you want to give them an overarching worldview. It's an obsession. That's something that the player characters don't have because, of course, it's all based on what you decide to do, but the villain needs to have a purpose. It gives them focus, and it really drives the reason why they're doing things in the first place. If you always cleave close back to that, once the players figure out what the villain's motivation is, it's critical that you stick to that so that they can predict and possibly head them off in the past in unique ways.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the challenge is putting together something unique from the bunch of tables that I give you. There's basic guidelines on different types of adventure scenarios, which, as I say, are cliches, and we codify those and put them in there in a very succinct way. A cliche, for example, in a Dungeons and Dragons game would be you meet in a tavern. There's a shadowy figure in the corner. He tells you, "Oh, by the way, or perhaps you're approached by the tavern keeper. Tavern keeper says, "I've got some vermin in the cellar." You go down to the cellar, you kill some rats, giant rats and stuff. You uncover there's a grate that leads down to some tunnels. Your character levels up. You get some gear and equipment from the reward that the tavern keeper gave you. Then you go down into the tunnels and discover that there's adventure progresses from there. But that's one of the most cliche ways that you start a role playing adventure in Dungeons and Dragons. It's cliche for a reason because it works.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, so there's the villain motivations. There's the cliche sort of themes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a layers table, like
Yeah,
the villain
I'll
layer,
give you a list of the tables that we've got there. So
and you said something about MacGuffins. So there's a table for
yeah,
MacGuffins if you need a
there's the
MacGuffin.
villain's lair table, there's villain motivations table, there's plot devices, there's challenges, there's factions, and then we go into the boss battles, how you handle boss battles narratively. So I even give you instructions on like how much time that you should plan for each scene or part of that adventure, but just through sheer experience. How many, realistically, it takes an hour or so. In play, we found that it's actually a lot faster than a traditional role playing game. So you can get through an entire storyline in an hour and a half. So if you've got a limited amount of time because you're a working adult, for instance, and you ain't got time you may be lucky to get one or two or three sessions, but because everybody's got jobs and commitments and children and obligations and things like that. We're not all teenagers anymore who can sit around and play games all Saturday night. And we've got international time differences and things like that. So getting one of the big complaints about role-playing games is that it's like herding cats getting groups together. And that's one of the chief things that kills role-playing games. So we ain't got time for a session zero. We ain't got time to waste for, spending an hour just making a character, because we may not meet up for that's 2 or 3 sessions that are wasted out of our potential 4 or 5 that we're only ever going to get.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a reason why I built it now like that.
Yeah, absolutely right. We found generally that the longest any game it went was probably about 2.5 hours, but more likely an hour and a half to 2 hours,
Mm,
and the whole adventure is finished. So
yeah,
now you have to now you either have to make another adventure or find something to repurpose from somewhere else or
yeah,
whatever, and so you're gonna chew through adventures like you wouldn't believe.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna get a lot done.
Yeah, and if you are a person who has got the time to devote to like a West Marches campaign or something really big like that, with Super Atomic, just because it's fast and rules light doesn't mean that you can't run a whole campaign of interlinking stories, a comic series, a full story arc, will play out all of these sort of things, or the full development and retirement and next generation of characters that take over. Like you're going to have Legacy Hero, who my dad was a superhero, Silver Age, Golden Age, Modern Age superheroes, running through all those different things. When I expand the game, there's going to be all sorts of stuff that are
Well,
included.
let's talk about that because I was
Let's talk
gonna. That
about
was
that.
my question was, what's the future for Super Atomic? So let's answer that question.
Right. It's already under development. Even as I'm finishing off this book here, I'm already working on the expansion for Super Atomic. So think of this as like, if you're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, it's going to be the Unearthed Arcana for the first edition. So this is D&D basic. This is my red box set, nice red cover. Basic idea of the game. Put it into anybody's hands. They understand what role playing is. It's designed for ease of play and stuff. And in and of itself, it's a beautiful, elegant, self-contained game. You don't need anything more than that to play Super Atomic. But how does it benefit? Add more stuff. So time travel. I'll give you detailed lists and things on the time periods that are most common in narrative, particularly comic book narratives. So we're talking, 1940s, 1950s, the start of the atomic age, World War II, end of World War II, that sort of thing. Uh, and different chunks and time periods so that you can play these different thematic games. And also handle time travel in the game because you've got all the resources already set up for you. And I've got a lot of experience running time travel in games and things. I handle it quite easily. And I just wanted to pass on that knowledge of like it's not intimidating. There isn't actually any problems with time travel in games. Most of the fears that you have are just because you're unfamiliar with running them and you're a little bit anxious that it might go wrong. Same thing with like the wish spell or the deck of many things in Dungeons and
Mm.
Dragons. You're always worried that it's going to go and ruin your campaign. And of course, there'll be outrage, clickbaity titles everywhere that tell you exactly the same thing because that's how they make their money, is scaremongering a little bit. But
Mm.
it's actually not that intimidating. There's also going to be probably the one of the most exciting things about the expansion for Super Atomic, and I've been racking my brain for what I'm going to call the book, but I keep calling it the Super Atomic Expansion. So that's the title. It's just the Super Atomic Expansion. And the alien origins and alien species is something that I'm particularly good at. And I put a lot of work into this over many, many years ago. Me and this other writer called Marco Ferraro. He is responsible for D&D Beyond. He's done a lot of the same sort of thing. He's been working away and making his own conversions and expansions that are based on the original Palladium system. And so we worked together and we came up with this absolutely brilliant system, which is foundational theory behind Super Atomic. Like you can randomly roll things. We created the Cosmic Creation Netbook, which is obscure, but if anybody's ever seen it or heard of it, it was kind of like a cult-like thing where you could use these tables and charts to generate star systems, galaxies, dimensions, right down to individual organisms and their culture and society. So you could literally generate a completely unique alien species by just rolling on a bunch of charts and filling in a nebulous form. Kind of before AI ever arrived, we were already creating an engine that would just generate stuff by instead of scraping artwork and stuff, we were literally scraping our experience and our pop culture references and everything that I could possibly every Star Trek creature, every type of environment or alien environment that could possibly generate a life form is included in my charts and tables. It is, I I kid you not, you're not going to see anything else like it.
So
No way.
time travel, space,
Space travel and
planets,
dimensional
environments,
travel,
dimensional travel,
magic.
aliens, magic.
There is magic in the game already,
Yes.
so don't get me wrong, but it's not its own particular character class.
Hmm.
So you can't play. You could play something which is a superhero version of a sorcerer, but there's no like Doctor Strange
Yeah.
specific type characters. So I'm going to expand and narrow down so you can have those specific play style options. So you'll have your hardware gadgeteer character. Exactly how do you represent hardware and gadgets and stuff like Hawkeye, for instance? How does arrows work and that sort of thing?
Ro-
How do you handle that in the game?
robots.
Robots, yep, cybernetics, bionics,
Right.
high super technology, and also things like how weird is the dimension that you get ported into. So I'm going to give you a new type of scale, kind of like the tech level from Traveller and other types of games, which actually handles the weirdness level of a dimension. So this is an innovative sort of idea that I've developed over time. We call it the Kuehl scale. How many steps away from normal is the dimension that you're arriving in? If you've ever watched Rick and Morty, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They can
Right.
step into random dimensions, and it may be so similar to their own dimension or their own, their probability of the reality where they're from. The only difference is that they say Parmesan instead of Parmesan, you know, literally like that. That's also how you handle time travel to avoid all paradox and things like that. You just step into an alternate dimension, which is very, very similar, but happened a little bit sooner or a little bit later. So you're not
Okay.
actually going to, you can't possibly erase your own existence because you literally, where you came from is still there. You never destroy your own original timeline. So if you don't want to include that sort of risk in your narrative, which can ruin a game, you don't have to.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's perfectly logically feasible, and I get and I explain exactly why using as close as I can get to real world physics. But of course, it sounds real, kind of like Star Trek. Sounds realistic, not
Yeah.
really, but
Right.
sounds plausible,
So,
logically
so,
consistent.
so that's super atomic, the expansion.
Expansion, yeah,
I've obviously, as and we've talked about this a lot, even when you were developing super atomic, I've been pushing you towards, well, I guess what you referred to it as atomic fantasy, which
yeah.
which is, I mean, whether that winds up being the super atomic expansion or its own separate thing that
It
it's
will be its
genre.
own. It will be its own separate thing because fantasy is a genre,
Yeah.
and it has certain constraints and expectations. And yeah, there are. I've got a very, very high concept for a setting, a world setting, and that's really what this is. Is you say, making modules or something or adventures for Super Atomic? Well, Atomic Fantasy will be my love letter to fantasy gaming. So taking anybody who's been watching my YouTube channel for a long time and has always been itching to see what I would create if I was creating a world setting.
Hmm.
That's what Atomic Fantasy is going to be, and it's of course using the Atomic engine, maybe modified a little bit for the specific setting. Much like you have specific characters that are really only intended for Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or something like that. But yeah, it'll be incorporating those tables and things and interpreting them in a fantasy way. So the alien generation tables will be incorporated, but in a fantasy environment. Yeah, so it crosses the line between the old saying of sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's atomic fantasy. It's actually a sci-fi setting, but when you're playing it as a player, it seems like pure fantasy. But
Yeah.
the person who's running the game actually knows it's hard science fiction.
Mm.
Mm.
So I mean that's a project that might be a little bit way off.
Yeah, yeah.
But and that's really,
Realistically, that'll be a couple of years
yeah.
of development. We're looking at probably about a year until the full expansion for Super Atomic is ready, just based on what I've already done. So I know what my workflow is like, and I know what I can do, and
Mm. Mm.
realistically when I can do it. Yeah, there was a lot of research and stuff and basic core sort of decision making, which took a lot of time because I needed to sit down and really figure out what I was doing
Right.
when I developed Superatomic. But now that I know, it further development will just be adding more stuff, and that's a lot easier than the first initial grunt work of what I was making. So
Yeah.
yeah, now I know how to make it. I can make it a lot faster.
Yeah. So, um, we've been going for about an hour and a half, but
Right.
I don't know if you're up for the challenge. You got your book close by? Can
I
we
do.
make a can we make a character and the structure for an adventure in 5 minutes?
Sure. Okay. Let's
I've got
go.
dice. So,
Okay.
what's background first, right?
Yep.
So I will. How many dice do I have to roll for background?
Just a 1D 100.
Just a 100 dice roll. Okay.
Yep. One to 100.
Okay. So 70.
70 is Second Life. So if we flip to the description, just listed alphabetically.
Yep. And you can obviously tailor this stuff. It might not be worded exactly the way you want it, so you slip it into the narrative that will work for you, people. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we don't need to over explain it. You'll see. Okay,
Yeah.
so Second Life just says your past was wiped clean and you started anew under unusual circumstances.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And then what if I wanted to obviously let's go with a power origin. Let's roll
Okay.
up a power origin.
So this is again a 1 to 100 roll.
Okay. So I got 8.
8. Well, it's quite low.
Yeah, it's very
Ancient
very.
ancient ruins. So let's see. Ancient ruins?
s- So ancient ruins, probably it sounds like I find some ancient ruins and I'll probably touch something or be
Yeah,
exposed to something.
it's a little more specific with this, right? You discovered an ancient echo chamber and sneezed, causing a destructive sonic transformation that demolished the chamber and granted you extraordinary powers.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've probably been a superhero for a little while, so maybe I did some training after I got my superpower from my origin. I've got my background, which was before I became a superhero.
Right.
What about some training? If I had did some training,
Okay.
what do I roll for that? 100?
Special training. There's actually the mutation tables can be between structurally in the book, but you can flip over to the special training, no problem.
Okay.
First of all, let's find out what the source of your special training was. So we've got actually a special training origins table. That's a 1 to 10. So
1 to 10. Well, that's
yeah.
easy. I can roll that easy peasy. 2.
So it was clandestine. You've been trained in espionage, some sort of espionage organization. Now let's see what specific training you got. This is a 1 to 100 table.
Okay. So I rolled up a 78.
78 is rodeo riding.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously,
Do I even
obviously
need
not
to
related to
explain?
my superpower stuff, but more related to the fact that it's my leisurely activities. This is a
Yep.
recreational thing, people. Just leave
Yeah.
it at that. Okay. Well,
Your memory getting wiped clean when you in your background, there could be a severe concussion from getting thrown off a bull, for instance.
might well be.
Yeah.
Let's roll up. I find a lot of the players that I played this game with don't like mutations, but some do. Let's roll up a mutation and see if there's anything that's sort of developed over time after this
Okay.
exposure.
This is a D1000 table because
Oh,
there's a load of
there's
them.
yeah, okay. So this is brutal. So I've rolled this. This is 736.
Okay, so you get that number by rolling a 10-sided dice 3 times, and each one represents the hundreds, the tens, and the ones.
Yep.
Pretty
Yep.
easy.
Yep.
So what was the number? Sorry.
736.
Okay.
So while he's looking that up, so I've rolled the percentile dice for my hundreds. I rolled another red dice, 10-sided dice, and got the 3. And then I rolled an orange dice for my ones and got a 6. So that's how I figured it out,
Right.
people.
You've got reversible elbows.
Oh,
So so you have elbows that can bend in both directions.
youch.
I mean,
Okay.
it's not that obvious a mutation. It can actually be quite useful, but
Might
also
be
really freaky because you can
really
do that
freaky.
whole walk around on your back thing.
Yeah. And if you get something like that and you don't like it, just cross it out.
Yeah, pick another one.
Just cross
Pick
it
another
out.
one.
All right. What about a major power? There must be a major superpower I've got from my exposure in the ruins that has changed me the way it is. What would I roll?
Yep. That's another one to 1,000.
Right. Okay. So I get 400 and 10.
410. Defensive adaptation. This is, in the X-Men First Class, and there's the guy who just adapts to any sort of
Yes.
damage that hits him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Darwin.
Yeah,
Darwin. Yeah.
bingo. That's it.
Right. So that's quite handy, unless, of course, that bugger that's in that movie shows up and decides to make something explode on
Yeah,
me. That might
put
be a bit,
pure kinetic energy of
yeah. All right.
tremendous force inside your body.
Well,
Yeah.
what about two minor powers as well?
Okay.
So what do I need to roll for that? It's 1,000.
Yeah.
313.
Okay. Sorry, 300 and the number 13
Yeah,
or 313?
313. Yeah.
Okay. So 313 is energy expulsion particle beam. You can fire particle beams. This looks exactly like the Ghostbusters power pack thingy.
hmm Right.
Exactly like that. It hits you, you get partially disintegrated and electrocuted at the same time.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
had people roll this up before, and they describe it completely different every single time.
Right.
It's great stuff.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, so one more minor power, although I feel like those two powers are probably would be enough, but let's roll one more time and we can decide whether we want to keep it or not. And I got 879.
879 is
Quite often I find that the third one tends to be kind of like a utility rather than a let's blow the shit out of the world or villains.
right.
But you never know with these things. Adaptable and energy beam is a pretty nice combination, frankly.
Yeah. So 879 is super long range vision.
Oh, see, that's exactly what I was saying. It's like that last minor power always seems to be kind of like a utility thing that's really quite useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice. So I got my character. That's it.
Hmm.
Well, sweet. Okay, so what if I had to come up with a an adventure and I've got to be the host or the game master for those of you who it's the host.
Right.
So I've got to start sort of coming up with something. Where would be a good place to start in terms of a table?
Exactly what we just did. So you roll up a character, but instead of thinking of it as a superhero, think of it as the supervillain.
Right.
So you're responsible for the origin story of your bad guy.
Right. So you
Um,
essentially build your bad guy or your villain the same way you build your superheroes for your player characters.
exactly. So we'll
Okay.
start off with your lair.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's do that. So what
This
am
is
I
1 to
rolling for there?
100.
100. Okay. I can do a 100 roll. That is 57.
57. Your lair is an old library.
Okay. All right. An old library. Probably, I don't know, New York, old New York library, lost in time maybe, that got slipped out.
Yep.
It's
The
made a
text says in a forgotten part of the city with secret rooms hidden behind bookshelves and ancient texts detailing forbidden knowledge.
Okay, well, there's a good start. I've added a whole bunch of other stuff that's a little bit weird, but that's
Yeah.
how it works. So
Yeah.
we got a layer. What else? We need what is a
We need a
motive?
motivation. We need a motivation. Yeah.
So that's a 100.
It is.
So 100 is 86.
86. Stop a time paradox.
Ooh, and I was just talking about time before.
Right.
So and New York City. So yes, stop a time paradox.
Yep.
Now, for
Let's
those of you who are
let's
wondering, hang on, aren't you supposed to be the villain? Aren't you supposed to be creating a time paradox rather than stopping a time paradox? But I guess the reality is that AJ, when he designed these things, he didn't necessarily lean into the villain is doing something that is mustache twirling. There's a
yeah,
rationale for doing it.
right.
So stopping the paradox might be actually a really bad idea
Yeah.
rather than a good
For
idea.
example, in science fiction particularly, you'll have the main group of characters, say the Stargate SG-1 team. They've caused a change in the timeline from their point of view. When they arrive back in the Stargate to Earth, everything is different, and all of the characters and people that they knew are in different roles. Some of them have got children. In the Avengers, for instance, Iron Man's got a daughter, so he's not motivated by changing the past or changing the present because that would destroy the possibility that he has a child. And so the people there aren't necessarily villains. Your characters, from their point of view, are villains. So people who were your allies in a time paradox sort of story may end up being your enemies.
Hmm.
You may be the villain. The bad guy may actually, from his point of view, be the good guy.
Yeah.
And that makes a very compelling villain because you understand their motivation perfectly, because you would do the same thing in their situation. They're a
Yeah.
tragic, they're a villain by circumstance.
Yeah. But also too, when you roll up something like that, right? And it says stop up time paradox, you can
Mm.
switch it and reverse and say create a time paradox.
Yep. Or they because they will stop it by any means necessary.
Yeah.
So they will kill, murder, steal, because as far as they're concerned, this reality that they're currently in is wrong.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it might well be that that reality is something they have changed and they want to keep the changed timeline that they've got. So that they don't want the original one. They've
Mm.
deliberately changed it so that it works out to their advantage or the way they think it should be. And so if a paradox comes along, then it would disrupt that completely and it might return to the original. And you don't want that if you're a bad guy. So
Right.
yeah. Okay, so what else do I need to roll?
Let's see. We've got plot devices. In this case, it's probably something like a time machine, but let's roll.
Okay,
Just
let's
a 1 to 100 roll.
okay, so that's 82.
This is a case where you would just probably just pick. Shadow Step Ring.
Okay, so my time machine thing that I altered move time around with or affect time with is a ring.
A ring that grants the ability to travel through shadows, but it weakens the user's physical form each time it's used. How this
Ah,
plays out, you can modify it so you're actually changing time around you,
yeah,
or you're phasing out of existence because you're traveling into an alternate reality
through a
or
shadow.
something like that. Yeah, through a shadow.
Yeah, okay, cool. And that's
Or it could
pretty
just be a complication that isn't actually related to the plot at all. It's a red herring, we call it in a narrative.
mm,
It becomes the focus of the supervillain, or they lead you to thinking it's the focus of their mission, but it's not actually.
yeah. Okay, what else have we got?
Challenges. These are
Challenges.
narrative challenges. Yeah.
Well, give us just one. So what are we rolling?
D100.
Okay, so again, 71.
71 is the fading. So
Ooh,
nebulous. The fading says uh, some people in the city have begun to turn transparent.
ooh.
They're still alive, but soon they will vanish entirely, and no one will remember they ever existed.
I
See what I
wonder.
mean about Kismet?
Yeah, so that kind of
Right?
fits very nicely. Is if you're going to
That's Back to
affect
the
time, and
Future.
that's
He
yeah,
starts to fade out of existence.
yeah,
Hey, where did my brother go? What brother?
mm, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So it fits quite nicely.
it
So
fits perfectly. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, last one. Factions.
factions. Okay, let's another 20. Is it?
D100.
D100 53.
53. Nature's Veil. Okay, so this faction, who's
Yep.
somehow involved, called Nature's Veil, their motivation, they're eco-terrorists using advanced technology to protect the environment. Maybe they caused the paradox in the first place. They never
Yes.
intended to destroy, time and reality as we know it. They were just trying to save the wurzeled plumed barn owl or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Or maybe they are the ones who have tried to revert the timeline back to what it was before our villain
Before the
modified it
lesser
and they
speckled bush skexy of Rhode Island was eliminated by some development company
yeah.
who had just happened to be developing some sort of teleportation technology that they blew up with their ill-timed improvised explosive device while they liberated the poor, you know,
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. So yes,
Yeah.
they're trying to return the timeline maybe, and they're using nature in some way rather than a ring, like our villain is, and
Yep.
that's why there's a paradox. That yeah. So it all
You're good to go.
flows, and when it doesn't flow, chuck it out and just use the bits that do.
Yep.
That's my advice. And it's very easy to port stuff from comic books and other tabletop role-playing games that are superhero based, sci-fi based, and even fantasy, I would imagine too. I haven't
Yeah.
tried that myself, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you would like to say? I think we've covered it all.
Just thank you very much for the people who are watching this for your tolerance and patience to actually sit through this entire thing. I really greatly appreciate it. And I hope you have a fantastic day.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.